Welcome to Inside Missions, a production of Maranatha Volunteers International, offering an in-depth look at the people, the cultures, and the countries where Maranatha is working. I'm Dustin Comm, and today we have a different kind of episode for you. This is going to be an audio story about the Kajiado Adventist School and Rescue Center in Kenya. If you've been listening to some of our previous episodes, you may have heard this place mentioned a few times. It's a haven for Maasai girls, sometimes as young as 6 years old, who are escaping child marriage and a dangerous ritual called female genital mutilation. Maranatha started working here in 2018 to provide some desperately needed infrastructure. First, it was dorms and bathrooms. These girls were sleeping in twin mattresses, 2 to 3 to a bed, and they were showering outside with a bucket of water. So it was really rough. And eventually we started to add all sorts of improvements like classrooms, staff housing, a water well, perimeter wall, state-of-the-art kitchen and cafeteria. And eventually we built a brand new high school because before that they only offered K through 8, and then the kids would have to go to high schools in the area where the staff and the students didn't really understand the trauma of their past. So we also helped to establish a farm near the campus that supplies fresh produce to the kitchen. So a lot of great things. Over the course of 6 years, we added 24 new buildings. Only 2 of the old structures remain. So a stunning transformation, and it was capped off with sidewalks, gazebos, beautiful landscaping. All this to say, the campus was dedicated in July 2024, and in our next episode, we're going to talk to someone who is there for the dedication to get their perspective. But today, I want you to hear this beautiful audio story that describes life at Kajiado closer to the beginning of Maranatha's involvement. It also showcases the depth of the connections that were formed between Maranatha volunteers and Kajiado students, which really is a microcosm of the hundreds of volunteers that would end up serving on this project over the years. This audio story was originally produced for a radio program, so it's really meant to be listened to. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see some of the raw footage that's attached to some of this audio, but when there's no video, then we're just gonna have a graphic on the screen. So I'd suggest letting go of the visuals on this one and just taking in the immersive sounds of the mission field, masterfully recorded and engineered by our media production manager, Leo Macias. I'll come back after the story is complete. I hope you enjoy.
Maranatha Volunteers International is a Christian non-profit organization that constructs churches, schools, and water wells around the world. Many of these projects are completed using volunteers. Last year, Maranatha organized a mission trip in Kenya where 26 volunteers constructed dorm rooms for a very special campus. This is their mission story. At first glance, the Kajiado Adventist School and Rescue Center seems like a typical boarding school in Kenya. There are kids in uniforms attending assembly, class, and eating in the dining commons. There are kids living in dormitories, doing their laundry and chores, and playing outdoors. But this is no ordinary campus. The Kajiado School is home to 150 Maasai girls who have endured or escaped female genital mutilation, or FGM. Sarah Daniel is the director of the Kajiado School.
In Maasai community, when a girl is born, she's just seen to be like a source of wealth, a source of income for the family. Because once you're born as a girl, by the time you grow up, at the age of 7, 8, you go through FGM. That tells you that now you have become a woman. You need to be responsible. At that point, they even start communicating to you, you're not supposed to be the same compound with your mother, you're now a grown-up person, you need to go and start your family. So as early as 9, you're supposed to go, get married, and start up a family.
Kajiado is a small town located about 52 miles south of Nairobi, Kenya's capital city. The Rescue Center was established nearly 20 years ago as a ministry of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It is a haven for these Maasai girls who have been rescued or run away from childhood marriage. Sarah Surem is one of the co-founders of the school.
And when they are rescued, they come back to the streets because they have nowhere to go. They can't go back to their parents because the parents, by the way, the exchange is with cows. They have already received their cows. And so they are seen as misfits in the society. And so they can't go back home. So they end up again in the streets and they get abused, and oftentimes they will go back again to their suitors. And so we thought that was a case really needing some attention. And so we changed our entire plan system and thought we can establish a home to kind of get a rescue home for these children. That's how the Kajiado home started.
Sarah Daniel says more than 2,000 girls have come through the center over the past 20 years. They receive a home, counseling, and an education. Yet at Kajiado, the momentum is being thwarted by a simple problem: space.
Because of the growing number and because of the cases coming up so much, the dormitory that we have is only supposed to handle a capacity of not more than 80 girls. But currently, as we speak, the population in our dormitory is 150 girls.
The tight quarters means that Sarah is unable to accept more girls in need of help.
I have cases of 46 girls who wanted to come in, but I don't have the space, honestly. I just gave promises that just give me some more time. But in case of any danger, please consult us. Let us know. But we don't have the space. Some of them are sleeping 3 on one bed. The beds are not that big.
The school is in need of a lot of upgrades and expansions. There are only 4 toilets available for all the girls at Kajiado. There are only a few outdoor shower stalls. The school also needs a new water well. The current well is not producing enough water. All of this need, but no funding. As a mission outpost, Kajiado cannot afford to improve the campus. That's where Maranatha comes in. Maranatha heard of Kajiado's situation and agreed to help on a number of campus projects, including the dormitory and water well. In March 2019, Maranatha organized a mission trip to Kajiado for volunteers to build a girls' dormitory. Eddie and Duana Falconer were among the volunteers. They heard about the mission trip through Maranatha Mission Stories, Maranatha's TV program.
Well, my wife and I, we have one thing in common, and that is travel. Several things in common, but travel is one of those things that we have in common. And so we took a trip last year as part of our vacation, and we traveled to Europe. But it was mostly leisure. We felt somewhat guilty when we got back, even though we enjoyed it, but something was missing.
The last time we went away, we just felt like it was great, but something was missing, and we felt that was because it was just all about us. We needed to do something where we combine service and travel. And we thought of Maranatha. I chose the Kenya mission trip, 1, because it was open, and 2, because I had the promotion for that particular trip regarding the rescue center, and the Kajiado school just really struck me in a really deep and personal place, and I just wanted to serve and do whatever was needed for the young ladies that go to the school.
But while Duana was certain of her choice, Eddie was apprehensive. As a self-employed businessman, he was worried.
There's always that fear of finance coming to the question, where you figure, okay, 3 weeks off a job, I'm self-employed, how much money am I going to lose? And then you realize, well, God can take care of us. And that's where we made the decision, and she began to make the plans, and everything just kind of fell in place from there.
Duana and Eddie were joined by 24 other volunteers with a diversity of backgrounds. None of them could anticipate the highly emotional experience of serving such a special group of students at such a special place. The first day of the project started with the arrival of the volunteers on campus. Volunteers described the scene.
The first morning we arrived, on our buses. The students were lined up. The gates opened, and here's hundreds of girls and a few boys in their matching outfits, and they were marching in time up to make 2 lines to welcome us in. They sang us songs in English, they sang us songs in their native tongue and with their native display and movement. It was just fabulous.
When I saw all the kids, oh my God, I mean, I guess the first question I was like, I wanted to cry, but there was so much mixed emotion when I saw the kids singing and I saw everybody just kind of lined up. I felt very small because this was way bigger than I am, so I was just grateful when I got here. All the emotions were there.
The volunteers also got to see the conditions of the old dormitories.
We were able to tour the school and tour the current dormitory rooms, which are just a couple of big rooms with bunks stacked side by side by side, with a capacity of 80 and 150 girls sleeping in here. So they push the beds together. I was looking at the mattresses, which are just a foam mattress wrapped in some sort of blanket, and then they have their pink sheets over everything. And, in the U.S., I've worked in juvenile hall, jail for juveniles. They had it better. They probably didn't have the happy attitude and disposition of these girls, who are so thankful because this is so much better than what they came from, that it's just amazing.
Little did Eddie know it was only the beginning of what would be a transformational week for all. First, there was the work. The main job was masonry construction for the dormitory. Elias Velasco was a first-time volunteer and a first-time mason.
So I'm laying brick. It's actually my first time doing this. It's not going very well so far. Having a hard time getting the hang of it, but I'll get it.
Elizabeth Rabbit has been on a few mission trips, but laying block still takes getting used to.
And so the trick is to get just the right amount of mortar without it all falling off the sides, like that.
For those who would prefer work other than masonry, there were plenty of other tasks. Renee Harry is a first-time volunteer from New York.
Maranatha, and I think just on the strength of people wanting to help. Everyone sort of collected items and clothing, shoes, anything they think that would be beneficial to the girls and the boys here. They collected all those items before they came, and we sort of set up a little shopping area for them where the girls could come in and choose items that they liked, and then they would be able to walk away with an item.
In an empty classroom, Renee and other volunteers helped to fit the girls with dresses, shoes, shirts, and socks.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing for us these gifts and come back again. May God bless you.
At 82 years old, Jane Sines was the most senior volunteer on the project. She had been worried about her age, but at Kajiado, it was a welcome asset.
When I first started interacting with the girls here, they were really kind of hesitant, but the more I put my arms around them and just hugged them and just stood by them and held their hands, they just seemed to start glowing, and just more and more. And now when I would come more recently to the campus, they would just come running and wanting to hug me, and and they started calling me Grandma, 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 come here, Grandma, Grandma. And it was just a thrill.
On the first Saturday night, the school organized a social for everyone. The event immediately broke down any walls as the girls taught the volunteers Maasai dances and songs. Christy Richardson, volunteer.
We, celebrated the end of Sabbath, sang some songs, and then we got into the activity songs, action songs, and they were singing a song in which they came and got us again out and were teaching us to do their Maasai thing. I can't do it too well yet.
Eddie Falconer said the evening was a definite high point.
The children were so excited to get a chance to mix and mingle with us. They took us by the hand and we just had a great time. We just fellowship in the best way, and it was fun.
And that's why things like Saturday night, to model the behavior and to show them that we in Christian love can have a really great time and laugh and sing and jump around, was really a wonderful thing to do.
They were praising God. Everything was somewhat prayerful, or praising God, or thanking God.
The Saturday night social was a highlight for all, but the mission trip had more surprises in store, this time on the construction side of things. While Maranatha is committed to helping the Kajiado school expand the campus, a crucial element of success is dependent on water. The existing well is failing. Unfortunately, hydrogeology reports reveal that the chances of finding a good water source on campus is dismal. Elizabeth Rabbit.
The decision was made to drill a well over by the church where based on geographic studies, it was determined to be the best location, even though there was an awful lot of reason to be skeptical. It was determined that if there was going to be water on this property, that's the location where we would find it.
Renee Harry describes the day Maranatha started to drill as everyone watched.
The day actually of the drilling, all of the children came out, as well as the volunteers and all staff came out to the drilling site, and we had sort of a worship experience and a lot of prayer before we actually kind of started everything up.
The crew anticipated they would be drilling for days, as any water would be deep in the ground, if there was water at all. But the next day, there was a miracle.
Just around 11 a.m., they came, the operator, Gerald, came running over to where we were working. You could tell he was beside himself. He couldn't believe it. He was just like, I can't believe it. I just had to come tell you people, we got water.
When I first heard that there was water and we were all running to the well, my heart was just beating and my whole soul was just rejoicing that we had water at this school. They needed it so badly.
And it was just an overwhelming experience to know that God hears you, hears these kids, and knows what their needs are, and has just provided it so abundantly.
I have never seen this done. I've read about this, but to be an eyewitness, to see this happening before your eyes, to be able to experience the emotions and to experience a miracle, it took my breath away. This was profound. It was amazing.
The miracle of water felt like the pinnacle of the mission trip. Yet, just a couple days later, the volunteers had another climactic event, the dormitory. After 6 days of construction, the Kajiado Adventist School and Rescue Center celebrated the opening of a new dormitory.
They'll all have new bedding, and the tile layers are in there, laying a tile floor instead of a crusted out concrete floor.
Lynn Marsa, one of the volunteers, recalls the day of the dedication.
Probably the highlight is the girls coming to get us out of our chairs and bring us up to the dorm and going in with us. When we walked into the dorm, I had 2 girls with me and they said, "This is my bunk, this is my bunk." That was kind of special.
Director Sarah Daniel was absolutely giddy.
I had to jump up and down with my girls during the dedication of our second dormitory. Having in mind now that all my girls will be occupied in the new dormitory, they will have the new beddings, the new mattresses, the duvets, and some of them were telling me, in my life I've never covered myself with this. I'm just used to a blanket.
Duana Falconer watched the elation through a window, preferring to be an observer, quietly soaking in the joy.
Their heart was so filled, and I just thought, wow, I wish I could be here the first night that they are able to lay in the beds and just be here and still have like a girls' slumber party in the dorms, because it's so amazing. It's so amazing.
With the dorm finished, the objective of the mission trip was completed too. New building, new dorm, new beds, the physical goals had been met. As for the spiritual goals, the transformational experience of the volunteers, the blessings were as ample as the water that rushed from the new well. For Jane Sines, the experience has been extraordinary.
I don't know if it's because I know the story of why this school was started and how it's saving these young girls' lives and just giving them life. But this has been absolutely the most incredible mission experience of my entire 80-plus years.
Christy Richardson has also been impacted by her first experience in the mission field.
What we get back from giving on the ground is huge. And then I think that enables us then as people to go back into our community and share with them the needs and what goes on here. This is a form of worship. It's not enough to just, I can write a check anytime. That would be fine and that would help other people. But for me to come and really give and experience that is that true Christian in action.
Duana and Eddie Falconer came in search of vacations with a purpose, a way to see and serve the world. What they found was transformative. Eddie recalls his first night on the project.
And my wife kind of heard me sobbing that night, which is, it just got me. It got me right here, really did. And to see what Maranatha is doing, it changed my perspective as a Christian. It really did. But I remember something very profound, and as I'm contemplating it, Jesus had said at one point, "Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven." So now I'm understanding that to mean what we can do now for His kingdom is far more important than just watching for Him to come.
Today, Maranatha is continuing to change lives at the Kajiado Adventist School and Rescue Center in Kenya by building more bathrooms, classrooms, and more. Maranatha Volunteers International, established in 1969, has constructed more than 11,000 structures and 1,000 water wells in nearly 90 countries around the world. More than 85,000 people have volunteered on our projects. If you enjoyed this story, watch our television program, Maranatha Mission Stories, on the Maranatha channel for Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and on YouTube. Learn more about how you can get involved with our mission by going to maranatha.org or find us on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, so that concludes our audio story about Kajiado. I hope you got a glimpse of how impactful this project has been, not only for the students there, but for our volunteers and donors. More than 1,600 volunteers and donors have supported this project. And I gotta say, as someone who has been to the campus several times myself, there's a depth of our work that happened at Kajiado that's hard to convey. In effect, many of these girls are orphans, leaving their families behind, or they've been disowned when they went to Kajiado. The school is their new home, and the staff and the students are their family. And Maranatha volunteers have been able to serve as positive adult mentors throughout our time working here. So if this was the first time you've heard about the Kajiado Adventist School and Rescue Center, I encourage you to click on one of the links in our show notes to watch any of our 30-minute TV episodes about the school. And, God has been moving here through much-needed buildings, but also in so many of the lives that have been touched here and for eternity. So I hope you enjoyed. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, tap the follow button in the app you're using to listen to this. You'll be notified of our latest episodes, including a follow-up to this one, where we'll hear from Kyle Feast, who was one of our first people from the office here in Sacramento, California to visit, and he was also there at the dedication. Thanks for listening.